Welcome into our final Dynasty team review. It's February 16th. Super Bowl ended earlier this week or last week, whatever you want to call it. And we're finishing up our last video for our Dynasty review, looking at 2023 and beyond for the Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. They did it again, even though it was a down year for the Chiefs. They pulled it off somehow. And here we are again. So for fantasy, for Dynasty, Brian, what do you... a lot of exciting pieces for the Chiefs.
I wouldn't say a lot, I don't know. I'll get into I was just gonna start going off on like a little rant there, but no, I'll just save it for like when we start talking about these individual guys. But yeah, obviously they're the most complete, best team in football. We've seen it too many times. Like Mahomes is a superstar, and he's going to continue to be. He proved it again this year. It's he doesn't even need a lot around him to get it done. Obviously they won it in a different way this year. Their defense was just so good, but that wasn't, they really hit on their draft class from 2022, especially with those guys they drafted on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, I just don't really see this team getting any worse. It's I don't know how you can pick against them. And I totally agree with what Mahomes said. I think it was after the Super Bowl. He's yeah, we're not underdogs, referring to the fact that they were considered underdogs in Vegas for the last 3 weeks of the playoffs, including the Super Bowl, which is kind of crazy to think about, that you could get points. You could pick the Chiefs and get points for even in the Super Bowl kind of a thing. Yeah. And it's just man, what do they have to do?
Yeah, no, they turned it on. MVS, who couldn't catch a cold, who was catching game-winning 40-yard catches and stuff like that in the playoffs. So it's just pretty amazing.
He helped me win some money on a prop bet, actually, because his prop was over 1.5 or over under 1.5 catches, and I went over, and he had 3. So awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, Andy Reid's coming back to this team. He already announced it. Somehow they have 23.5 million in cap space. 17th most, even though they're paying Kelsey and Mahomes a bunch of money. 6 draft picks, so not a whole lot of draft picks, but they got basically all their top 5 plus Dallas's 5th this year. Free agents, not a whole lot really fantasy relevant. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the future Bengal, is on there, but other than that, there's no one really. Mecole Hardman, Richie James, no one really there. So I say future Bengal just because he's best friends with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, because they all went to LSU together. So I wouldn't be surprised if he landed there. Mahomes, he was falling there for a bit. He's back up to QB1. I don't know if there's anything to talk about. I'd still rather have Josh Allen, but again, it's stupid to argue anything against Mahomes. So
yeah. It's so tough. Yeah, his dip was QB3, obviously not a whole lot. I don't know. Any given day of the week, it's no Mahomes, no Josh Allen, Mahomes. I think what's exciting, and you can kind of say the same thing about Josh Allen, is they basically did it with not a whole lot around them. I'd say Josh Allen had more offensive pieces than Mahomes. I don't think that's a very I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know if that's an easy argument, but no, it's probably pretty similar. But yeah, no, they're just, Mahomes is the shit.
But it is important we should say, he was QB8 this year, and he wasn't good from week 8 onwards. He had 1 20-point game from week 8 onwards. He lost people for fantasy. I know he just won the Super Bowl. For fantasy, he lost a lot of people their fantasy leagues because they took Mahomes in the first or second round. And so it's a lesson to be learned. 1, I don't think QB should go that high. 2, if you are going to take a QB that high, you need to take the running quarterbacks because they're just so safe. Josh Allen was completing 12 passes and he was putting up 20 points because he rushes. Lamar's going to rush. Jalen Hurts is going to rush. So it's just, guys like CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, I remember going into this year was like being taken so high. Even Justin Herbert, like you need, Mahomes can run a little bit. He gives you enough rushing to be QB1 when he's throwing 40 touchdowns. But, you can get seasons like this. We've seen it 2 years in a row now. Herbert last year in 2022, him being way overdrafted and he disappointed given where he was drafted, and now Mahomes. So it is a lesson to be learned. That's more for redraft than anything. But there's a limit on these guys. If they don't have the good weapons, if someone gets hurt, if they're not rushing the ball, they could have just a negative touchdown year like Mahomes did this last year. So, but for Dynasty, yeah, he's QB1, QB2, whatever. No one else to talk about at the quarterback position. Isaiah Pacheco at running back, he's really cemented himself. I know there was a lot of concern from myself included. It's just like, what is Pacheco really? Could they just move on from him because he was a 7th round pick, but he was kind of a big part of their offense this year. He was he saved their ass in a couple games, and he seems to solidify himself as the guy. So he caught 44 balls too, which is probably not something I expected from Pacheco this year or ever really with Jerick McKinnon there. So where you have Pacheco, like, is he just a running back that you're fine with going into 2024 as your RB2? And, he averaged 12.1 standard and 13.7 half PPR points a game. So where are you at with Pacheco?
Yeah, no, I think he definitely made like a huge case for there was a lot of, like you said, ourselves included, about what are they going to do with him? I mean, they just won 2 Super Bowls with him, back to back. So it's like, yeah, no, he's going to be on the team. He's going to be their RB1, on their depth chart. It'd be nice if we could continue to see that pass catching ability from him. That's partially, I guess I can't necessarily say that. I was going to say that's partially because what's around him, but I guess, Jerick McKinnon was quite injured this year, wasn't he? And
he just didn't really play.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think they know that they can trust him, that they're not paying him a bunch, which is kind of something we were talking about. I was going to say before we started, but no, maybe it was when we actually had already started. But yeah, the idea is just, you don't have to pay this guy a ton, and you should. I don't know if this might come off wrong. I was going to say he should be happy to be on the team, but no, that sounds like a negative. He he doesn't deserve it, kind of a thing. No, but yeah, just in general, he's good. He's on, a very good offense, and especially the way their defense played this year, that allows Pacheco to get more run in general. It's like he wasn't crazy. He had 205 rush attempts, then 50 targets basically. So not like super high numbers, but with the threat of Mahomes and Kelsey, and we'll get to Rashee Rice in a little bit, but with the threat of just Mahomes under center, it really they're not going to stack the box, kind of a thing, against Pacheco, because they have to account for Mahomes, just in general. They have to, that passing game is just so deadly. It's you got to really focus on that, and Pacheco gets good yardage on that. And that's not, again, I feel like everything I'm saying in my own head, it sounds like I'm talking smack about Pacheco, but I mean this in a good way. I'm not saying he's not, he didn't deserve it, or he didn't get it, or he wasn't, like he said, he was a huge part of the reason why they did what they did. So Pacheco.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think they don't want to pay running back, so they're not going to bring someone in. They only have six draft picks, so I am a little bit concerned about just how he runs and him being injured. I know he was injured this year. I think it was a concussion, where he missed 2 games, or 1 maybe. But he is what he is. He's probably a top 15 running back. If he's going to catch 40 passes, he'll be a top 15 running back. So that's basically it. And there's really no one else. Clyde should have. And I always reference this when me and Dad make the rookie scouting videos. We're doing these in January now and February. It's like you need to start paying attention then, so you don't get influenced by what happens 2 weeks, 1 week during the draft. Because Pacheco versus Jonathan Taylor was the perfect example. Like, if you were paying attention in January or in college football, and not everyone has time to watch college football, but just start paying attention to stuff in January, February. You knew Jonathan Taylor was the best running back, and the only reason Clyde got bumped up was because he went to the Chiefs, and everyone's like Kareem Hunt and blah blah blah. So, just he's a good reason why you should pay attention now and not, during the draft and start looking at, it's a day before my rookie draft, I'm going to start overreacting now. So I think he goes to the Bengals, just like what I said before, but I don't know if there's much value there anymore. He's just not very good. You see it every time he touches the ball after Pacheco. You're just like, man, he's kind of sucks,
Yeah.
So.
I was going to say, not just landing spot, but it's also, like first round versus second round, but, only 9-10 picks between the two, Jonathan Taylor and Clyde, but it was more like, well, if the Chiefs use him, so it is more landing spot than anything, why he was being drafted where he was. Like, I know Dad, like famously, infamously, whatever. Now everyone will know that Dad took him in the first round in his rookie year, and obviously, like, it was all like we saw what Kareem Hunt did with Mahomes, like in this system, and we just know Andy Reid's tendencies were like, oh, dude, this guy is gonna be like so good, but. Yeah, it didn't really exactly work out that way, did it?
No, it did not. And Clyde is he's teaching us lessons. He was another good example of trade high when you can. What was it, 2022? Where he started off the year on fire? Or was it 2021? I can't remember now, but I think it was 2022. 22. Yeah, he had all those touchdowns. Like 50% of his points were touchdowns, and traded high on him, I'm trying to see. I don't even see him doing well in 22.
I think it was like literally the first couple of weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only see 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was 2 touchdowns. It was like 20 points, 15 points, 13, 23 points. That's in our scoring system, so that's a little off. But yeah, I think you traded him in like mid-September for I thought you actually got more than this, but not that it was like, this is totally fine, but you got Dallas Goedert and a 23 4th basically. And I was kind of thinking, for some reason in my head, I was like, oh, didn't you get like a first round pick for him? Like,
no,
but not quite.
But Goddard was a piece that I got JSN for, so Goddard and Mike Williams. So so Clyde really was part of that
whole package.
But yeah, Generic Prince, I think, is a sneaky ad. He was a rookie last year. They kept him on the practice squad all year. He kind of flashed a couple of times in preseason. Now he's been in the system for a couple of years. They're losing their RB2 and 3. So maybe Generic Prince is like the new kind of like younger Jerick McKinnon. And Jerick McKinnon, I guess I should mention, is a free agent. I don't think there's really anything there. So he didn't do anything this last year. He's going to be 32 years old. But yeah, Generic Prince, I'd throw him on my bench and see if he's the RB2 for Kansas City heading into the year. So anything else with the running backs?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Yep. And wide receivers, there's a couple guys to talk about, but there's one guy that really matters. That's Rashee Rice. I made a sell high video and Rashee Rice was in there. He's down to RB22 now that rookies are in. So 3 rookies over him. I guess the only thing I worry about is like, they just won the Super Bowl, and what did Rashee Rice do, right? Like, I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's obviously on a good offense, but like, again, they won the Super Bowl. He had 6 catches for 39 yards. Like, he's not he's not Kelsey, like, of the offense. He's not a main focal point. I think he's more better as like a 1B or 2 receiver. And I think this team brings in 1 or 2 options at the receiver position. Look what they did when they lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl and Mahomes got demolished running for his life. They just overloaded their offensive line. What was the story this year? Their offense sucks. They have no pass catchers. Everyone's dropping the ball. Now they won the Super Bowl, but they're going to fix that. They're going to bring someone in, maybe draft a guy at 32, maybe draft multiple guys. So I think I want to cash out on Rashee Rice right now, because I think also the perspective of him is higher than like wide receiver 22. So still fine player. Like, I just don't see him being like a top 12 guy. And I think I could potentially get like top 12 to 15 value for him. So yeah, where are you at with Rashee Rice?
Yeah, I think that's fair. God, why I can't do math right now. I was trying to figure out what his target share was. But yeah, so basically, 600 pass attempts for Mahomes, 100 of those went to Rice. So it's not like he was necessarily like, like you said, like he wasn't the guy. But I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at for a rookie. Almost broke 1,000 yards. And like he was the dude there, like outside of Kelsey and Pacheco, obviously. Like, he was very important for them, like down the stretch. He became much more involved after the bye, which is what we want to see from rookies in general. But no, yeah, I agree. I actually am a little surprised that he is wide receiver 22. I thought he would have been a little higher, honestly.
Well, take out the rookies. He was 19.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. Like, I thought he would have been ahead of Addison at least. Maybe even like Devontae Smith. I just feel like people, maybe they're just not quite as knee-jerky on this one as I thought, But yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, maybe, yeah, see what you can get for him. Like, and, like if you can't trade him, I don't think that's a bad thing at all, Like, but yeah, I do think the Chiefs will try and address their offense a little more, because that was the weaker half of their team. And, we don't know what that's going to look like. But, I mean, he is in a great spot as it stands right now. But could it get better? Like, maybe a little, but could it get a lot worse? Like, yeah, it definitely could. Not that that's definitely going to happen, but yeah, no, I like that sell high call for sure.
Yeah, and another thing, he was 3rd in the NFL in yards after the catch, and that's good. That's fine. Like, there's good players who have good season. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown are 1 and 2, but also it's a stat that doesn't translate as much year to year. So we've seen Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, other guys that are at the top of the yak. We've seen them do it other ways. Whereas we haven't seen that with Rice. Obviously, he's a rookie, so it's a little bit of a more volatile stat to like bank on. 600 of his yards were after the catch, so that's a huge percentage of his number of his yards. So I just don't think that's sustainable. So can he win being an elite route runner? I don't know, and I'm not saying he can't. I just don't know. So
there is one thing to be said about him in general, as far as like, him and his connection with Patrick Mahomes seemed pretty good, especially after that bye week where, like Mahomes has a tendency to kind of run around and like just extend plays in general. And he was obviously getting to where he needed to be to start getting those balls like in his direction, like. So I think there is something to be said about that. Like, he's not just like maybe like the chemistry was definitely there. So that is something to look forward to. Like, I think he could get better, but you just got to decide on like what like where you're at on that, I guess.
Yeah, and to be fair as well, like he was a rookie receiver, so they take time to come on, right? So like if you kind of look at where he started to start games, which was week 7, he became like the starter. His snap percentage didn't change too much till about week 13, 14, but he was the starter from like week 7 on, and his pace there was more like 90 catches, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. So, we have to also point that out too. Like, it's not easy to just come in day 1, week 1 from a rookie. Not many people do it. So if we kind of look at to where he started really, making a difference, we can kind of extrapolate the numbers from there. So yeah, I definitely think, I'm not trying to get rid of him necessarily. It's more just capitalizing on it.
Are you taking any first for him? Where was he drafted? Like, was he a second round? Sorry, where was he drafted dynasty wise?
Dynasty was a second round pick.
Okay, so second. Okay, so
maybe he snuck into the first if someone was like a Chiefs fan, but I think he was like an early second. Okay. I might take like the one. Man, it's tough because if you just think about this year, there's probably 7 to 9 wide receivers in the top 40 of the NFL draft. There's a good chance, I should say.
Yeah.
Plus 3, maybe 5 quarterbacks in the first round, plus a top 5 tight end. So that's what, 13, 14 picks right there potentially. So It's tough. It's tough. Maybe not a late first, maybe like the 110 up. I would take for Rashee Rice.
Keep Trade Cut basically has him even with 107. So I was actually a little surprised to see. Yeah, I was a little surprised to see that. I would have guessed 110 or something like that, but
yeah, 107. You're talking about potentially Rome Odunze. You're talking about a quarterback that was drafted in the top 10 potentially in a super flex league. I would take the 107 for sure.
Okay. Let's not talk about Sky Moore. No.
Well, we do because he's a dead asset. I'm sorry. They were literally, and the difference between him, because people are going to ask this, what about him versus Treylon Burks or Christian Watson? They all haven't done anything, and I don't think those other two are dead. They literally said, we're going to bench you, and our offense became better when you weren't on the field. We were better without him on the field, literally. So I'm sorry, Sky Moore is a dead. I kind of liked him coming out of college. Thought he was like a nice little player, and I thought the Chiefs was a nice little spot for him too. But I'm sorry, it's he's dead. Anything? I know you said you don't want to talk about him. Do you want to?
No. Just we haven't seen anything from him. Like you mentioned, Treylon Burks, and who was the other one? Watson.
Yeah, Christian Watson. Yeah.
I would argue we've seen more from those guys.
Oh yeah, we have. Yeah.
I don't think those guys are even in the same category. It's just kind of like, man.
I mean, they kind of are because we've seen more, but that's not saying much. From we've seen 400 yards from Treylon Burks. That's not saying much.
Hey, that's 2 seasons of Sky Moore, though.
Which is why he's dead. Yeah, and they literally benched him and said we're better without you. So
I know. I remember getting the notification Sky Moore will be active for the Super Bowl, and it's will he? I'm not buying it. For sure. That's all we really have to say about him. I just want to dunk on him a little bit.
Kadarius Toney's another one it's just dead. From a former first round pick, he's not going to be on the Chiefs anymore. He's not good. It's funny because I'm looking more into college production and when these guys were starting to be good in college, and Kadarius Toney was not good until his last year in college, and he was 21 years old. And the breakout age of 21 is not a good sign for fantasy production in terms of just good receivers. So I think there's only 2 receivers since 2010. No, there's 8 receivers, 8 out of 78. I looked at 78 receivers from 2010. Since 2010, there's been 78 fantasy relevant receivers, which sounds low, but anyways, 78 fantasy relevant receivers since 2010, and only 8 of them didn't break out in college at the age of 20 or younger. So It's just an interesting little thing to look at, I think. But yeah, he's dead. No one else to talk about here. Kelsey is coming back, and for that reason, he's very high on my tight end list. So there's no way in hell. I think he's ranked. Oh no, he's ahead of Ferguson. Okay, I think everyone ranked ahead of him is fine. Pitts, Andrews, Kincaid, Hawkinson. I think that's fine.
It's all age, but yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. But I think he's like the extreme value pick, the extreme value target. If you have a competitive team, like I would easily trade my my late first round draft pick if I don't have a tight end, or Kelsey if that's what I'm missing at, like for my tight end. Like I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be a little more hesitant on that. Just again, we're talking about in February, so I don't have to start a lineup until September 9th, So Kelsey's doing nothing for me for 7 months, right? So that's kind of why. But mid-season, I'm fine with that.
I think
he's like the final piece.
Yeah, maybe you can still get it done. I don't know. I just feel like if he's doing Kelsey things, which obviously if he's not, then why are you trading for him? What's that?
He didn't do Kelsey. I know he's still tight end 3, and it was tied with Laporta in points per game, but we're talking about 11.5 points. We're not talking about 15.5, which is what he was in 2022, or even 13.5 in 2021. So he kind of wasn't doing Kelsey things. So that's why I'm a little like he showed he wasn't a difference maker this year. So I'd be a little hesitant about a late first in this year's draft, especially.
Yeah, I just think that if you want to get him, maybe you can still get him for a first, like mid-season. But I feel like he's gonna be on a contending team roster, and he might not be right now. Like he might be on someone's like full rebuild at that point. And I don't know. Like I'm kind of curious to see, or I don't know if we'll ever like know anything regarding like was it a knee injury at the beginning of the season that made him miss that first week, and then he didn't really look a lot like himself. What's that?
Yeah, but the thing is, his good weeks were in the beginning of the year. Like he was good weeks 1 through 7. He was 2 through 7. He was a Kelsey, and then in weeks 8 to 17, he wasn't Kelsey. He was just kind of a meh tight end. So yeah, I get that. Like, that it makes sense. But if it was kind of reversed, I would definitely be more in. But then again, we saw him be awesome in the playoffs. We saw him be more like he was, like Kelsey in the playoffs. So. But maybe they want to think about that and like, all right, we're just going to kind of save him, quote unquote, for the playoffs. We know we're going to get there most likely. Let's give him some breaks and we'll ramp him up in the playoffs where he had 355 yards in 4 games, which is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, the big difference is obviously, the touchdowns weren't there, Then we kind of talked about like the Chiefs offense in general kind of struggling a little bit. Which I don't think that anyone who gets added to this team is going to affect Kelsey's role. Like I just think that it was kind of a down year for their offense, and I'd bet on, basically the previous 3 years over this last one, which I know it's hard to say, he's going to be 35 or is he going to be 34? Either way, like, yeah, he's going to be 35, but I don't know. I don't really see him. I don't see reason to like panic necessarily about this next year specifically. Like he's a very specific player for a very specific type of team for sure.
Yeah. The tight end, the touchdown thing is interesting to note because I think in our heads we think, yeah, he's a monster touchdown guy. Like not really. Like 2019 5, 2020 11, which is great. 2021 9 is really good. 2022 12, but also 4 came in one game that year, if you remember.
Yeah,
this last year 5. So it's not. Yeah, so it's not like Yeah, obviously, like, we're talking craziness here, but he's an awesome player, and he's not like Gronk kind of like peak, where it's like I can pencil in 12 touchdowns and that can save the yardage that maybe he gets less of because he's older or something. So
Yeah,
that's just something to note.
I just think it's kind of funny too. Like it's like, oh, Kelsey didn't do Kelsey things, but he was still tight end 3, like overall, right? Like, and I know it was kind of a down year for tight end in general, and we already kind of like went over that, like when it comes to like touchdowns and stuff is what we're there for the tight ends this year. Sorry, go ahead.
But it is important to note, like, oh, he's still tight end 3. Oh, he's still tight end 1 per game. But think about redraft. He was being drafted in the first round. You don't draft a tight end who's giving you 11.5 points in half PPR in the first round. You draft the guy who's giving you 15. You draft the guy who's giving you 5 more than the second guy. That's the point. So
yeah, it's hindsight, but yeah, no, I get it. It's not. It's what happened, so you definitely have to take it into account. But it's kind of like, yeah, I expect him to be closer to 15 points per game than 11. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad bet.
Maybe not. I mean, again, 4 games in the playoffs, he had 32 catches. So what is that? 7-ish a game. So it's 3.5 points. He had 355 yards. So what's that, like 70, 80 yards? So you're looking at 11.5. Then he had 3 touchdowns. So yeah, I mean, you are looking at closer to 15 than 11.5. So
like if the line was basically 13.5 half PPR points, like, are you taking the under on that, or?
I'll go under, yeah.
Okay.
Just because, like, maybe they were. I don't think they were, but maybe they do kind of like save him in a sense.
Yeah.
Get other guys involved for the playoffs or something.
Sure, I could see that, but yeah, no, he definitely helped his. Like the way he ended the year definitely helped a lot. I think it's funny how much we're talking about Kelsey, but
I know
because he's one of those players, right? Like he is like, we've seen it for so long that he is a true difference maker at his position, but he's getting up there in age, like yeah, isn't he like the exact same age? Maybe not exact, but like he's like the same age as Gronk, and Gronk's been gone for 2 years now, right?
Yeah.
But
And just for reference, like I know I kind of sound down on Kelsey. I'll take 1 year of Kelsey over any tight end that's ranked under him. Njoku, even if they play for 5 years. Njoku, Kittle, Ferguson, Mayer, all those guys. Like I'll take the Kelsey potential 15 points per game for 1 year rather than the, oh yeah, I got 8 points from my tight end this year, Jake Ferguson, So, that's where I'm at with him. Like, if you're trying to decide dynasty versus short term. So he's there's other guys. You can find millions of Jake Fergusons every year. Millions is obviously an exaggeration, but you can find 4 or 5 of those guys every year. So
the league is expanding. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Millions.
But yeah, go ahead.
No, what I was gonna say, I don't know, like this probably isn't a very good place to say this, being like the last video of like this series and all that stuff, and I know you're this isn't what you're not saying, but it's like you really do have to play dynasty like redraft if you're in that win now mode. Like that's how you have to like value these players to an extent. Obviously, yeah, age is still a factor, but it's like a very small factor, or it's like it's not even close to being like the biggest factor for sure. So kind of buried that one at the end of like this, like what, 16 hours worth of videos.
Well, yeah, we mentioned it before though. Like you do have to take age into account, but there is like a point where we just get a little ridiculous with it.
Oh yeah,
and like I forget the example. I was like Josh Downs over like Keenan Allen. It's like, come on.
yeah.
Like I understand Keenan Allen maybe has one more year, but it's like this is a top 5 receiver if he's healthy, potentially. Like Josh Downs, you're happy if he's 24th, and those, when you weigh it out in the end, you're not going to win with guys who are putting up, top 24, 24 overall receiver seasons. So
yeah,
there's a point where the cut, like it's like, all right, there's a disconnect here, you know?
Yeah. Now's the perfect time to get Keenan Allen on your team, by the way. Wide receiver 44. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so dumb. I mean, not dumb, but just, I don't know. Anyways, we don't have to keep talking about this. We should have a video just about this kind of stuff.
No, I thought the Chiefs were going to be the easiest. They have to be in like our top 10 longest video. So Titans win that one though, surprisingly. But that's it. That is it. So looking ahead, lots of rookie mock drafts going to be coming out, maybe multiple a week. Obviously, we're doing rookie scouting. We're doing rookie scouting already. You know, free agency stuff. We're gonna, look into. I think we're gonna make a video in the next 10 days, end of February or so, looking at like looking at what was I going to say? Oh, like predicting free agents. So maybe you can capitalize on someone or potentially trade away someone. So, yeah, I'm excited. I am excited. Dynasty. This is Dynasty season. This is where you win and lose your Dynasty league. So
yeah, there is no off season in Dynasty, right?
No, and it's the people that are kind of paying attention now to things that do well. Obviously it's unpredictable, but you give yourself the best chance to kind of mitigate the unpredictableness, if that's a word, of Dynasty or fantasy football in general. So, any last words there?
No, just thank you all for watching, especially if you watched all of these. Which I know that's like a big ask for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we like talking about this stuff. The reason why we started doing this is because we just like talk. Like this is what we'd probably be doing anyways, but now there's a camera on kind of thing. So like and subscribe, like you always say, Mike, and good luck.
Shout out to Bo Soxer forever. He's our biggest fan. He comments like on all our videos, and I think he just recently found us like in early January, but he literally like comments on like all of our videos, like, oh, nice video, and leaves some interesting stuff to think about too. So shout out to him. I think he maybe watches all of them, so hopefully he hears this.
If you played Dynasty, what did he say his name was? Bo Soxer? Bo
Soxer or Bo Sox ER forever.
Said Mike your team and we'll review it for you.
Oh, I told him in a comment already. I said, yeah, like because he went into his team a little bit in a comment. And I was like, send me your team by email. And so maybe he will. And we'll record a video, and I'd love to do that for anyone. So but I'm gonna end it so it doesn't beat the Titans. So
okay.
see you guys next time.